How you doing? You doing good? You all warm and cozy and comfortable in your little 1950s nuclear home. You're satisfied with the way the world's going. You're confident that war won't break out at any time. No chance. There's no way there's Russians in your country. Not at all.
Even if they were, people like John Wayne and Gary Cooper would keep you safe.
Oh, yeah.
Because they are spies. Especially in the propaganda of U.S. films. For spies films is what we're getting at.
In case it wasn't clear at all, we're talking about the spy trend.
And whether it's, Mission Impossible, whether it's James Bond, whether it's Austin Powers and his various sequels.
One of the biggest surges in the trend that we'll talk about eventually came around 50s, 60s era.
Right.
You got so many TV shows during that era.
But before we get to all that, like Austin Powers, let's go back in time.
You know us here. You're watching The Real Brain Wrap. We're going to talk about spy trends. We're not going to just talk about the current ones. We're going to go all the way back to ancient history.
We're going to have a whole video talking about what we're not going to be talking about, building up to what we're going to be talking about.
Just the history and all the stuff leading up to the trends, because it's all relevant. It's all important. It's stuff that builds to the thesis of each topic we're talking about.
But before we get into all that, welcome to The Real Brain Wrap. I'm Greg.
I'm Ty.
And here we unwrap spies.
We attempt to unwrap spies.
Because of all that training they get.
Yeah, they're hard to catch, they're hard to conquer, they're hard to crack.
If you don't believe us, just check out Spy vs. Spy. They keep trying to catch each other and they're not succeeding.
All this time, they've been going back and forth. Yeah.
Spy versus spy. Not spy caught spy. Not spy gets spy. Spy versus spy.
Spy vs. Spy, first published 1961 by Mad Magazine. Interesting.
Tyson, why don't you take us back to the 1700s?
Well, that would be when we've uncovered the first known classified document that we've ever gotten. It was by someone disguised as a diplomatic envoy in the court of Hammurabi in ancient Egypt.
That's not AD, that's BC. Wait, 1700 BC? All the way back then?
All the way back to 1700 BC. It has been going on for a very long time. There have been spies, scouts, anytime that there's war. They talk about spies and espionage in the Iliad. They even talk about it in the Bible. They were used heavily in the Greco-Roman War. Also in ancient Egypt, we get the Amarna letters, which were ancient diplomatic correspondences written on clay tablets that were describing intelligence work and espionage.
It seems back then gadgets were much harder to come by.
I mean, ancient Egypt, you never know. They do say the pyramids were built by aliens and whatnot. Maybe they had some alien gadgets on their side with their ancient Egyptian spies.
Yeah.
I want to see that movie now.
I just like the idea of them trying to hide these stone tablets from prying eyes. Like, what do you got there? Nothing.
Well, back then, they didn't have to worry about hackers. I think hackers back then were ones that actually broke the tablets. They just
hacked them up.
Hacked them up into pieces. The Odyssey was like ancient Greece's adventure epic. And the Iliad was like ancient Greece's war epic. So everything in the Iliad is all war stuff. It's got the Trojan War in there, and so you got the Trojan horse in there. And so I made the joke that, I guess the Trojan horse was like the biggest spy ever, right? That just sneak in undercover a giant wooden horse, and then have all the spies come out. We gotcha.
We have written knowledge of this from the 1700s BC. There's probably a lot more evidence of this that we just don't have yet, or that has not been left behind. But all these different countries, warring nations, conflicts, which have had spies, it only makes sense that eventually when The Art of War comes out, does it remark on the use of spies?
Precisely. In the 5th century, Sun Tzu writes The Art of War. A lot of the leaders throughout history of any country have probably read Sun Tzu's Art of War at some point. It's very important and influential. Not only all that, but Sun Tzu's Art of War insisted that espionage and intelligence gathering was necessary for both wartime and peacetime.
At 5th century BC, we jump forward to the 1700s AD. But between that point, we do know that there's spy stuff that was used and done with conflicts and wars. But we're going to skip ahead for time purposes. Go ahead.
So when America came around in the 1700s, George Washington was known as America's first spy master. In fact, once we get to the 1700s in the American Revolution, we start getting to some more well-known, famous quote-unquote spies. So during the American Revolution, we had Benedict Arnold, Nathan Hale, and Benjamin Franklin.
Now, Benjamin Franklin, he's an interesting one. He's got a huge ego. Some articles say Benjamin Franklin was a British spy. Some say he was an American spy. He may have been double.
He may have been both.
There's a story of him going to France and trying to procure a secret deal between France and America, help America fight Britain. But Britain knew all the movements that Benjamin Franklin was making, so was it because they were spying on us? Was it because Benjamin Franklin was giving them notes? Or was it because he just couldn't keep his mouth shut because he's just that big of an ego? Who knows?
I'm betting on all three.
Ben Franklin may have been a spy or just a guy with a big mouth.
Tell us what you think. Do you think Benjamin Franklin was a spy or just a guy with a big mouth and a big ego?
So the 1700s arrive and America gets spies unofficially. But officially, on the books, in 1917, America gets its Espionage Act.
Together.
Gets their act together, yeah.
Basically, every other country by this point had an espionage agency of some kind or a officially run intelligence gathering team, except America. They were the only ones that didn't have one. By World War I, they were like, we should probably have one too.
All the other countries like, "Aw, that's going to be a lot harder to spy on you."
Some of the more well-known spies around World War I era, other than Mata Hari, who was a Dutch exotic dancer who spied on America and England, I believe.
But how did she spy on them?
When you start looking into actual spy work that's happened throughout history, you start finding out that the James Bond version of him just like sleeping with everyone is kind of more accurate. It's a lot less action and it's a lot more trying to seduce people and get their trust to gain information out of them.
Remember, the way to someone's information isn't through their head, it's through their pants.
Happiness is a warm gun or whatever else is in your pocket.
Like a warm burrito.
Other than Mata Hari, there was the writers. T.E. Lawrence, he was stationed at the Arab Bureau Intelligence Unit in Egypt, and from then on went into the rest of Middle East and Saudi Arabia area, and he was incredibly influential in the Arab Revolt.
Wait, his name was T.E. Lawrence, and he was in Arabia. Is there a movie about this guy?
Well, all you're missing is the word of, and you've got Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, I was going to say Lawrence of Arabia of, but I know Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Intelligence.
In addition to T.E. Lawrence, you get W. Somerset Maugham.
W. Somerset Maugham was a British spy who was also a writer.
Ashenden or Ashenden, not sure. Again, not linguists.
Not linguists.
But it's like Ashenden, the British spy or the British secret agent, something like that. Like a collection of stories that are loosely based on his actual spy missions that took place for Britain in World War I. He was tasked with going to Switzerland and basically pretending to write a new play while spying on Germany and Russia.
So you're saying he stuck to a different country under the guise of doing a show in order to spy?
Yes.
Oh, like Argo.
It's happened multiple times. It's very interesting.
Fascinating.
It proved effective in World War I, so they tried it again, but like even more. So come World War II, you get Graham Greene, John le Carre, Ian Fleming, and Roald Dahl that were all writers that spied during World War II under the guise of being writers. Half of them were literally just tasked with going and trying to seduce the wives or girlfriends of people in political power or military power or influence of some kind and try to get information out of their wives and girlfriends. And much like we were saying with Mata Hari earlier, it became even more common as time went on. And then it's no surprise that when Ian Fleming's one of those people, that when he starts writing his James Bond stories, that it's like, hey, surprise, he's sleeping with women to get their stories and to get their information. But do you know who else spied during World War II?
Who?
Julia Child. Like, she didn't actually spy herself, but she was a member of intelligence agencies and handled classified documents and escorting of said documents to the power people.
Hey, we've got some fabulous documents.
Thank you, Julia.
Ta-da.
What we're all building to here, the idea of using artists and writers as spies or intelligence gatherers has gone back for a long time. And the more that it got used effectively, the more that they kept using it even more. Since they were writers that they were using, the fiction started appearing. And so more in works of fiction started appearing, and those works of fiction were reflective on the events that the writers actually went through, they would then hire more writers in real life when the next war would come around to then do the same thing again, but there was more this time, and then it was like happening more. It's a really fascinating example of the escapist entertainment that we produce, reflecting on our own society, and then society reflecting back on it, and it keeps going back and forth. It's really interesting.
Life imitates art, art imitates life.
The trend track that this was all about, it was really just like the trending history of Spies.
Soon we're going to get into the actual fictions, the stuff that people wrote. We're going to get into the James Bond, Mission Impossibles.
The movies, the books, the TV shows.
Exactly. And start trend tracking those, when those picked up, when those fell off. And even how spies and westerns actually kind of meshed at one point. They combined together to prove that one wasn't dead. Until then, I'm Greg.
I'm Ty.
And this has been The Real Brain Wrap, where we unwrap trends and social progress through media. Please give us a follow at The Real Brain Wrap on YouTube, or give us a follow on Instagram at OBNooT, OBNOOT.